Hi, my name is Ethan. I'm a photographer here in Portland, Oregon, and today I wanted to talk about a very specific camera. And for those of you who've been following me on Instagram or on Threads for a while, you probably already know what I'm going to be talking about, and that is my favorite camera, my ride or die, the camera that I have been using now for 2.5 years and have just fallen more and more in love with the longer I've been shooting with it. And I want to talk about why this is the perfect camera for me, even though I think actually for a lot of people, it is not the camera for them. And that camera is the Leica M5. Now, this camera has definitely a reputation that comes along with it, and it has a very, very long backstory that I'm not really gonna get into because people talk about it plenty online. If you want to hear a whole breakdown of why the Leica M5 has the reputation that it has, why the camera is the way it is, you can go watch any of those videos. But today I want to talk about why this camera is for me. And you might watch this and realize it might be the camera for you as well. We'll see. The first thing is the focusing. I've used SLRs the longest when it comes to photography. Honestly, I've really kind of fallen out of love with the SLR focusing system. It just doesn't really click for me. I feel like I miss a lot more shots than I hit. And I think it just comes down to the fact that I wear glasses and I have a hard time sometimes seeing the viewing screen super well. And also just the prism system. I've never had a prism that I really like. I have one that does kind of like the split diopter kind of thing. I had ones that are just, you're just looking through the viewfinder and it doesn't have a lot of focusing assisting. And neither one has worked great for me. Sometimes I prefer one over the other, but either way, I find it sometimes be a little bit frustrating, especially in like a fast-paced shooting environment. Like just recently I shot a wedding and I decided to get some film photos and just kind of as a couple of shots here and there for fun. More for me than for the bride and groom, honestly, just to get some practice. I was shooting with my Canon AV1 and I missed focus on half of the shots that I took. Now, I only took, I think 12 photos on film during that whole wedding, just because I wanted just a couple little brief ones just to see if it was something I wanted to incorporate more into my shooting. And yeah, I just found it to be kind of a frustrating experience getting that film back and just seeing how many of those shots that I totally missed. Especially because those were portrait mode, so I'm getting really close up, so it's just a thinner focusing field, but still it was just frustrating. Now coming to a rangefinder, when you're using a rangefinder, those of you who've used it, you have your focusing patch that appears in your viewfinder, and when you're aligning those two images on top of each other, it's just so much more, I don't know, it builds so much more confidence in my shooting. I feel like I know my shots in focus, and I know really quickly if it wasn't in focus. It just gives me so much more confidence knowing that focusing patch is accurate and it's gonna tell me exactly what I want. I've never had an issue with this focusing patch. The only time I really was uncertain with it was when I was first starting out with this camera. My first couple of rolls through it, there definitely was a learning curve that came with that because I really did struggle with the rangefinder at first. But now that I've gotten used to it, it's become a system that I rarely second guess myself, especially because I'm typically shooting at f8 and f11 or f5.6. I'm not usually one to shoot wide open. I've definitely grown more used to a deeper depth of field, but either way, that focusing patch just gives so much more confidence when it comes to knowing my shot is in focus. So that has been probably the first thing and the most important thing to me is that. The second thing is the ergonomics of this camera. I just like how simple it is. Everything is where it needs to be. But the real thing with the M5 for me is the shutter speed dial. Having it be oversized, having it overhang from the body, just means that it's so easy to shoot with this camera with it up to your eye and to be able to see where your shutter speed is at. It gives you a live preview of what number it is in your viewfinder, the light meter, the way it displays it horizontally with the two lines that you create an X with to know when you've nailed your exposure. That whole system just works great. I think it's a really ergonomic system. I think it's really smart the way they designed it. I think it's better than any other Leica just because of that. Every other Leica I've shot with, it's been frustrating going from this to that, just on the sense of shutter speed. Like I find that if I use another Leica, I'm not adjusting shutter speed. I'm only adjusting aperture because that's the only other thing that's really like accessible when you're shooting. So I don't know, I'm sure it's something I could get used to, but this whole package just works. The size of the camera, the weight of it's nice. Other Leicas I know are smaller, but I think the size of this one is good. I don't feel like my hands are cramped or I'm getting in the way of anything. Other ones I've shot with, I just feel like I'm a little more tight and it's a little harder to get, you know, your hands out of the way sometimes, but this one I find it's great. It works. I kind of mentioned it with the light meter, but the viewfinder just as a whole, also in this thing, really bright, really sharp. It incorporates 35mm frame lines, which is really important for me because 35mm is my preferred lens choice. Right now I'm shooting with a Voigtlander Color Scope R 35mm 2.5, and that's a great lens. I know a lot of M5 shooters typically start with this lens. I totally get why. It's super sharp, super compact, super easy to use. Although at some point here, I do plan on upgrading. I just feel like I'm ready for something that's just optically a little different and a little larger. So we'll see where that goes. I haven't decided which lens yet. It's kind of been a conundrum. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I actually end up going with. So the last thing that's really made the M5 my camera and why I love it so much is just, it is the kind of camera that makes you want to shoot more. It's been the camera that for the longest time that I wanted to get. When I knew that I wanted to start investing in the Leica system, pretty quickly I was interested in the M5 because of its design, because of its reputation. I don't know, that drew me to it a little bit. There's kind of an intrigue of it being like the ugly Leica, the Leica that was discontinued. I don't know, it just seemed so interesting to me of like, what did this camera do? And then I started hearing people talk about it and how much they liked using it, and kind of this resurgence that's been coming with this camera. And then also, because of its reputation, the price tag that came with it, it just is a lot cheaper than most Leicas, although that's becoming less and less the case nowadays. Now it's starting to actually build up quite a bit in its values, but it's still one of the cheapest Leicas you can get, especially if you can get one with a working light meter. I'd highly recommend it. It's just, yeah, so nice. But at the end of the day, like the camera that's gonna make you shoot more is the camera that you should have. My SLRs don't get me to shoot more. I'll use them on occasion, but usually it's, if I wanted to use a specific film stock and this camera is already loaded, I'll be like, well, I'll use an SLR today. But if I could have just this camera, that's what I would want. And honestly, that's been something I've been considering, is just having the Leica and getting rid of my SLRs. Because frankly, I just don't feel compelled to shoot with them. So that's something that's been on the back of my mind recently, is thinning out what cameras I do have just to focus on the stuff that makes me want to shoot more. There's no need to have anything else really. This is great, this is perfect, this is exactly what I need. It's the camera that's designed to work with my shooting style, my shooting needs for the photos that I like, and I can't really see myself shooting on anything else. So yeah, those are the reasons why I love the Leica M5. And again, this might not be the camera for most photographers. Warning now, if you get into this camera, there's a lot of lenses you can't use. There's a lot of accessories you can't use, a lot of third-party accessories that are made for every other Leica body out there, except for this one. And finding a strap that you really like for this camera, again, is a pain in the butt. And I still haven't gotten the strap that's perfect for me. So that's the next thing I need to invest in. But if you can get past that, if you ever get a chance to use one of these cameras, I would recommend it just to try it out. And you might find that it also might just be the camera for you, but that's why it's the camera for me, at least. Yeah, I'm trying to get back into this whole YouTube thing. If you like videos about photography, specifically, it's just kind of about my photography, because that's all I really feel qualified to talk about, you can subscribe to this channel. You can stay up to date with what I'm working on if you follow me on my Instagram. You can also check out my website if you want. All the links are gonna be down below. And hopefully see you guys sooner than later. Happy New Year, and catch you in the next one.